Last week, I wrote an analysis that said that the United States, after months of indecision, had finally agreed to support Saudi Arabia in providing covert weapons assistance to the Syrian insurgency. I got it wrong. Hi, I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EAWorldView on Syria, how the U.S. is letting the insurgency hang in the breeze. The story that came out of the Wall Street Journal last week was that the United States, after discussions with the Saudis, were agreeing to the provision of anti-tank and even anti-aircraft systems to the insurgency. Having said last August, after Assad's chemical weapons attack, that it would not intervene, the United States administration had finally come off the fence, as it were. They had looked at the failure of the Geneva negotiations to get any type of political advance, and they had decided, finally, the insurgency needed to be able to protect itself from Assad's air force. No, that's not what's happening. The Wall Street Journal had been fed information, possibly by officials within the Obama administration who want this to occur, but who are being frustrated, possibly by some officials who are trying to cover up what Washington's real track is. Because from sources on the ground, there's a different story which emerges. The U.S., with its base in Jordan, is not helping the Saudis provide assistance. It's actually hindering that assistance. That's why, despite the story that we saw last week, we aren't seeing significant anti-aircraft missile systems. We aren't seeing any advanced anti-aircraft weapons amongst the insurgents at all. Only a few antiquated SA-7s. We are seeing anti-tank systems, anti-tank weapons, but these tend to be weapons that are captured by the insurgents from the stocks of the Syrian army, not from any supplies across the border. So the United States is not only declining to provide any assistance to the insurgents, they're trying to stop others from doing so as well. Why? Well, if you wanted to be really cynical about this, as we were a couple months ago, it might be that the United States had finally said, look, we can't get President Assad out of power. He's a bastard, but the fact is the alternatives are much worse. So we're going to go through some type of process with the Russians which allows him to go to election in the spring and to supposedly say that he has been put back into office with the support of the Syrian people. I'm not quite that cynical about the process. The Americans aren't saying they're happy with Assad. What they're saying is something slightly different. In the last 72 hours, there's been a slight change in the administration's message. Here's what they've been telling outlets such as the Washington Post. We had a meeting with the intelligence officials of many countries earlier this month. The Saudis, the Jordanians, European partners. And what we've agreed is to consider which moderate insurgents we can give weapons to. We're still serious that we need to give assistance, but we got to be really careful about who gets these weapons. Right, that's a fair point. But the fact of the matter is that this has been going on for months. The Americans, by putting out the story of yet another meeting that is taking place, are simply playing for time. They're spinning. They don't actually want significant weapons to go to the insurgents. They don't actually want a well-armed insurgency because they can't control it. And if they can't control it, they fear it as much as they do Assad. What does that mean? Well, at one level, it means that if America has its way, we're going to be in a Groundhog's Day scenario of these stories occurring again and again and again. But the Americans might not be able to get what they want. Remember, it's not just the Americans. The Saudis are the ones who have had the lead hand in supporting the development of the insurgency and in providing arms to it. And there are groups within the Saudi monarchy, within the Saudi elite, who will continue to provide the money to buy those weapons. Barack Obama is going to go to Saudi Arabia next month. He's going to try to tell the monarchy, look, we need to be on the same page here. We need to work very carefully, politically, militarily, economically about what we do with the insurgency. You're going to see lots of grandstanding on both sides. The fact is, Obama's not going to be able to convince all those Saudis, those people who give money through charity, which eventually buys arms, those people who might provide some type of support directly to the insurgents. And as long as he continues to be unable to do so, the fact is that the Americans on one hand are going to try to continue to strand the insurgency. and the Saudis aren't going to let it happen. I don't know where that winds up. What I do know is it means the Americans continue to be in a policy which is not decisive and which gives us no outlet for any resolution of this crisis. I'm Scott Lucas, and this is today's EA Worldview on Syria.